Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our Fiqh Hour, the first or the second in Ramadan, because the second day of Ramadan has started. Inshallah, tomorrow is our second fast, and we have a theme which, in my excitement yesterday, I forgot to share with you. And that theme was one that was raised last week by a sister who wanted to get some insight on custody. How is custody arrangements made? So allow me to just pull up that document that I had. So firstly, obviously, when we marry, the aim is that these two people who come together are marrying for a reasonable duration, at least for the duration, one, to have children, and B, to raise them, and three, to reach them to independence. That's that's a kind of given. I guess if for whatever reason there's no connection between the two parties, then what they can do is, at least for that time being, be together. And then when the children have grown up, then if they no longer feel that they want to stay together, then they can go their own ways. The reason being is, children obviously need both their parents. That's something that we need to understand. Children need both their parents, especially when the parents are together. It gives a good upbringing, it gives stability. I'm not going to share all the statistics with you, where if there's a broken home, or if there's only one parent, there's an absent parent, how much of an effect that has on the children, both in terms of their upbringing and in terms of their personalities and in terms of their behavior. So in short, when we marry, the aim is to marry for at least the time we have children, raise children, and make children independent from us. Make children independent from us in what way? Make children independent from us in terms of their dependence financially, having a place to stay, and also the love and attention and tarbiyah that every child needs. Once they've got that, then they can kind of find their own way in life, like most of us do. When we become adults, we find our own way in life. But for whatever reason, if the marriage does break down and they are still children, young children, then there is a system which has been devised, which puts the child at the center, which ensures that the child gets the attention and love from the particular parent that they need their attention and love from. So remember, in the Islamic system of family life, there are designated roles for each party. So there's a designated role for a father and there's a designated role for a mother. Similarly, femininity is instilled within the woman. And therefore, when a child is being raised, a girl is being raised, then she is raised upon femininity. And when a boy is being raised, then he is raised upon masculinity. Now, I know we live in times where that's kind of seem like it's old-fashioned or out of date. However, we're explaining the Islamic model. There are various models out there, but this is what has been requested in terms of what is the Islamic model. So when it comes to a boy, okay, when it comes to a boy, then the boy, even when he is a male, he requires the attention of the mother up until approximately the age of 7. The reason why the age of 7 has been given is because the age of 7 has been given because that is a point in the child's life where he is now pretty much independent from the mother. That shows that it's very important that the upbringing of a child, those first 7 years, are crucial. Sometimes we think that, children don't know what's going on. The kids, they'll only start understanding when they're sort of 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. They're only kids. No, as soon as the child is, literally a babe in arms, your personality, your behavior, the way you are with that child will leave a lasting imprint. A lot of, adults are affected by their early years for the rest of their lives. Now, unless they get some kind of intervention support, so for example, let me give you an example. So if a mother hasn't given much love to a child and that child has been sort of put to one side, you will find that when that child becomes an adult, they'll always be trying to seek external validation. They'll always be trying to seek an authoritative figure to say, you're doing all right, well done. no matter how old they become and no matter what part of life. And that is usually stems from the lack of love and attention that a mother has given. So so this age of 7, and we know from hadith as well that the Prophet ﷺ has already mentioned that when a child reaches that age, you should be instilling virtues and values that are Islamic, teaching the child how to pray, teaching the child how to fast, making them aware of the two genders and how we shouldn't interact and intermingle with the two genders. So even though this child is not a baligh yet, the law does not apply to him. When I speak of law, I'm speaking of the Sharia. The Sharia does not apply to him. He might not be, it might not be farad upon him to pray salah till he's 14. It might not be farad upon him for him to fast till he's 14. But here he is at the age of 7. These values are being instilled in him. So this age of 7 has been used by the fuqaha as a key age in a child's life, as they leave that key dependency part where they need love, where they need attention, where they need that mercy, affection, that only a mother can give. And now, don't get me wrong, these are generalizations. There are many women that lack empathy and lack love. And likewise, there are many men who are very loving and very caring and very motherly, if you can use a better phrase, in that. However, whenever the Sharia speaks, it speaks about generalizations. It cannot speak for every single individual. It speaks generalization. So generally speaking, this is the way women are. And generally speaking, this is the way men are, even though absolutely we accept that you will find different traits in the two genders. So the child, so when it's a boy, up until the age of 7, the mother will take responsibility. So if the mother separates from the husband, or the wife separates from the husband, or the husband separates from the wife, and they have a 3-year-old boy, then the right of the boy is that his mother takes responsibility for him. There may be reasons why the woman may not be given that custody, but we'll get to those shortly. But for now, let's just take that in its totality. When it comes to female children, okay, in this issue again, the mention is that the mother takes responsibility, has custody up until the age of 9 years old. Now, you might say, what's the difference between 7 and 9? Because 9 is usually the age or the minimum age in which a girl can become baligha, in which she can become mature. That's the minimum age. Of course, the maximum could be 14 years old, 15 years old. But the minimum age is 9 years old. So therefore, she is given responsibility for a child till 9 years old. So one might say, okay, why is it that she keeps the boy till 7, but the girl till 9? Reason being is that as the girl is now going to be taught to be feminine, she taught the feminine qualities, then the best teacher is obviously her mother. Her father's not going to be able to teach her feminine qualities. The mother is the ideal individual. So 7 approximately for the boy and 9 approximately for the girl. When it comes to the maintenance for these children, then the maintenance, like for example, food, clothing, madrasa fees, school fees, whatever it might be, then this is the father's responsibility. Okay, even though those children are not living with them. The reason being is when you ask people this question that, they say, oh, I'm a single parent. And this is a very dangerous language that we use, that I'm a single parent. In reality, a single parent is only a person that the other parent is dead or absent, completely absent. Just because a child is living with one parent does not mean that the child has a single parent. This is a cop-out. What there is still they have two parents, but the structure, the family structure has now fragmented. But it's still that the child has two parents. So the father has to continue to play that role. So even though these children are young, girl below the age of 9, boy below the age of 7, therefore the mother has taken custody of them. The father is still maintaining them, but the father will continue to play the role of a father. The only difference is that he is not intimate with the children's mother anymore. Why is he no longer intimate with the children's mother anymore? Because there is talaq between those two. Has that talaq broken the relationship between the father and his children? No. Has the talaq broken the relationship between the mother and the children? No. Because what tends to happen, unfortunately, is when talaq does occur, the children, either by the choice of the mother or not by the choice of the mother, become the mothers. And the father is just now a financial, is just a bank, okay, bank of dad. And he plays no role either by choice, he plays no role in those children's lives, or because the woman shuts him out and he plays no role in those children's lives. Either way, whichever of the two it is, whether he chooses to or he is not facilitated to, those children end up now with literally a single parent, whereas talaq does not mean that the children should have a single parent. All talaq means that the husband and wife aren't getting on. That does not mean that they cease to be parents now. They will continue to be parents up until they die, and that's something that needs to be understood. At that age, obviously, the children have no choice because they do not know what is best for them at that age. So even if a 6-year-old boy says, "Oh, I prefer to be with my dad," it's irrelevant. Even if an 8-year-old girl says that I prefer to be with my dad, it's not taken into why? Because the needs of the child are more so important, not necessarily their wishes. And we've explained already why the needs are as such. When it comes to obviously one person taking custody of the other children, that does not mean that the non-custodial parent has no right to the children. So he can visit, she can visit as often as they wish within reason. Okay, within reason. It's not, but they cannot take the child away for long periods of time. It might be just like, for example, a weekend or something. That's not a problem. But the custodial relationship belongs to that particular parent who the Sharia has granted it to. All past those ages. So when the boy goes past the age of 7, when the girl goes past the age of 9, now the father takes a custodial relationship. Why does it change at the boy from 7 and the girl at 9? Reason being is now the boy is going to be trained to become a man. Now his mother, no matter how she is, she cannot train him to be a man. The father is going to train him to be a man. So therefore, he needs to now come under the tutelage of his father. He needs to come now under the responsibility of his father, so his father can teach him what a bloke does and how a man engages and what he gets up to. The girl, obviously, why is the girl moving at the age of 9? Won't she be better with the mother? Reason being is now because the father is going to be her protector. So as she now starts to go beyond puberty and she starts to grow and she becomes marriageable age, she's going to get potential people interested in her. So now she needs her father's presence to make sure that unwanted attention is managed better, rather than it being untoward. And any relationship that's going to occur for potential marriage would be, obviously, the father would be arranging that with whoever he chooses to in order to make that happen. But it's usually the father would set the mahar with the potential man who is going to marry his daughter, and he will make sure that with honor and with respect that girl has now been married off. So you notice that in the custodial system, it's always about what is the right of the child, what is the most appropriate parent for the child, not about, oh, but I want to do it. Okay, it's not about what I want to do, it's about what is most appropriate for that child. What are the child's needs at that time? Because once a girl reaches bulugh and she becomes a woman, then she may. Similarly, when a boy becomes a man, they can marry. Now, I appreciate in this day and age, if a girl becomes a woman at, say, 15, that's not really going to be the age she marries. And similarly, if a boy becomes a man at the age of 15, that's not really going to be the age they're going to marry. So we know that that age is now going to be pushed significantly on. Now, obviously, the father has a choice of whether he wants to continue to provide for his son. He doesn't have to. Now, I appreciate within local law, domestic law, UK law, the father or the parent will still take a parental responsibility up until the age of 18. Past the age of 18, the child can literally, the parent can be shut out from any, sharing any private information with the parent. So if there's any doctor's appointments or anything of that nature, then even if that child is living with the parent has no right in English law to start to ask, oh, why are you going to the doctors for? What's the issue? Because now it's private. So the state law recognizes 18. The Sharia obviously recognizes puberty. So because obviously we live according to the state law in these circumstances, then up until 18, the father will take responsibility for his child. Obviously, the father will be supported by child benefit, things like that. So it's not as though he's taking it completely on his own. Beyond that age now, he would come to some agreement with his son. Now, we've answered questions in the past over these last few days that can the father levy boarding to his son? Of course he can. Okay, it's his house. He can do that because the boy's a grown man now. I had a conversation, as I said, with a young man in his mid-20s who was sort of complaining a little bit about why he didn't appreciate his father charging him boarding for living in the house. So I said, well, you try to find another house in which your ironing is done for you, your washing is done for you, food is cooked for you, your room is cleaned for you, for paying whatever you're paying to your father. And then he realized that he was on a good deal, because he knows that if he gets a flat, then he's going to have to do his own ironing, he's going to have to do his own cooking, he's going to have to do his own cleaning. On top of that, he's probably going to be paying 3-4 times as much. So I think, once you understand how the real world works, you understand that, okay, maybe I'm on a pretty good deal as it is. So that's that situation. So I think I've cleared up the custodial responsibility for a boy under the age of 7, a girl under the age of 9. And the maintenance is still provided by the father. Once the boy goes past the age of 7, once the girl goes past the age of 9, the father takes custodial responsibility. Obviously, the mother does not have to provide maintenance. The father provides the maintenance. What if the mother decides to remarry? Okay, so she's not happy. She's not going to stay single and dedicate her time to raising these children up until they're the age of 7 and up until the age of 9. She's saying, well, no, I want to get married. I don't want to put my life on hold. I want to get married. Now, obviously, we know, the Sharia tells us, and also we know from evidence, that when a stepfather comes into the picture, then the way he will look at these other children is never going to be the same as his own children. No matter how much of a saint he is, no matter how much of a pious person, at the end of the day, he's going to see these as not his children. So he's got no vested interest to raise these children, to advise them, to nurture them, to protect them. And arguably, he's got no right either, because if the girl has got a father, then this stepfather cannot arrange her mahar, cannot arrange her marriage, because that's the right of the father. He cannot take that away from him. So not only does he not have the rights of certain cases, he will most likely not take those responsibilities. So the Sharia recognizes that. It recognizes that it might be now that there may be some tension now, that obviously this new man that's coming to this woman's life, he's going to want his own family, his own children. So it's not going to be long before they start their own family. And once they start their own family, now she's going to be under a lot of pressure, because when he brings money home, he doesn't want his money spent on her children. He's going to say, well, why are you spending my money on somebody else's children? And even if she says, well, they're my children as well, then there's going to be a point of contention, a point of problem. And he's going to want priority for his own children. It makes sense. It's logical. It's emotionally sound that would happen. So the Sharia does say that if it so happens that the woman remarries and she marries somebody who is ghair mahram to these children, then the custodial responsibility will be removed from her, and it will be handed to her mother, i.e. the grandmother of the children. Okay, or nani, as some people may refer to. It will go to her. Why? Because her vested interest will always be for her children. Whereas now her daughter has remarried and she's married to another chap, and this chap wants to start his own family. He wants to do, he's got no interest in these 2-3 kids that she's brought with her. You even hear some chaps use that phrase, don't they? That, or she comes with baggage. So they even refer to those other children as baggage, as though it's a burden, it's an extra responsibility. And therefore, and that's why you find some men who are looking to remarry, or if they've either been divorced or their wife has died, they will try to stay away from women that have already got children. Why? Because they know there's more of a responsibility, more of a pressure that they have to take on board. So in that case, the Sharia says that the mother's mother, i.e. the children's mother's mother, their nanny, grandmother, she takes responsibility up until the age of 7 for the boy and up until the age of 9. If, for example, it's inappropriate for her to do it for whatever reason, she's not well, lacks accommodation, whatever, there must be some underlying issues where she's not capable, then it will be passed on to the father's mother. So the father doesn't get responsibility. Many people think, oh, if my wife can't look after my children, I look after them. According to Sharia, that's not the case. If somebody wants to do it according to English law, that's a different thing altogether. I've been asked about what does the Sharia say, so I'm going to explain to you what the Sharia says. So the father doesn't take responsibility for his children. In fact, his mother does. Why? Because the underlying issue for these children aren't which of the couple are going to be happy or which one of them won because they got the kids, but what do these children need? And the boy under the age of 7, the girl under the age of 9 need a maternal influence. They do not need a paternal influence. They need a female influence. They don't need a male influence, because they need that love, that attention, that building self-esteem, building self-confidence, always there to hear them, no matter what time of day, no matter what it is, never too tired to listen to the children. Whereas a father's qualities are very different. He can be very logical. He can lack emotion. He can sometimes be a little bit self-centric. He can be, tired from work or whatever, and he might prioritize certain things. He might want his free time. They might be, again, we're generalizing. Before everybody starts tripping, I'm generalizing again, as I've said, because I know new people are joining in. As I've said at the outset, there are certain qualities that women have, and there are certain qualities that men have, and the Sharia does try to inculcate them, and also try to give support to them, because Islam does draw a distinction between femininity and masculinity, a clear distinction, and it promotes femininity in women and it promotes masculinity in men very clearly. You can see it throughout the text, both scripture and hadith, makes it absolutely crystal clear. However, we know that there's many women that have kind of male qualities, strong and whatever, and then there's many men who have more effeminate qualities, not in the negative sense, but in the sense of that they're caring, loving, will give time to their children, will prioritize their children over themselves, and all the rest of it. So we've got to this stage now. Then obviously, even if there is no father's mother, then if they've got an elder sister or a maternal aunt, the mother's sister, or then if not a maternal aunt, a paternal aunt, but it will stay within the women. Once all the women have been exhausted, that there's no grandmother, maternal grandmother, no paternal grandmother, no elder sister for these children, no stepsister for these children, no khala, mom's sister as an auntie, no mom, dad's sister as a. There's nobody around. Okay, there's no females in the family at all within the close family. That you won't go too far out, because now those women may not necessarily have a vested interest for these children to succeed in life. There might be hasad, there might be this, Allahu A'lam. Now this is the only time where it will go to the father. Now this is when they're below the age of 7, below the age of 9. Okay, after the age of 7 and 9, the father takes responsibility for raising those children. I think that's most covered. Let me see if there's anything that I could add. Yeah, I think that's pretty much covered. I just made some notes on another page as well. Let me see if there's anything more I can add that needs to be said. Otherwise, I think I've done plenty there. So similarly, I'll add this point. Similarly, if for whatever reason the father lacks custodial responsibilities, so he can provide the maintenance, but he lacks the custodial responsibilities. He's a drunkard, he's a gambler, he's a whatever. The children are not sort of safe with them. Then the paternal grandfather will take the responsibility. Okay, so the paternal grandfather will take the responsibility. Then it goes to other males, maternal grandfather, uncles, and things of that nature. So it stays within the males until obviously that child reaches bulugh. Once it reaches bulugh, then obviously they should start. They have a freedom of choice when they both reach bulugh. So when a male reaches bulugh, he can choose if he wants to move in with his mother. That's absolutely fine with him. The female, the girl, will continue to stay with the father until obviously her marriage time comes. But the boy, if he chooses, when he becomes a baligh, he can, if he so wishes, move in with his mother, because then it's his choice to do so, because then the father is no longer responsible for maintenance. So I think that covers the whole concept of child custody after divorce, custodial responsibilities of the parents and custodial rights of the children, as was a theme that was raised some time ago. So what we'll do now, inshallah, is let's pick up some questions that have come in the meantime onto our YouTube, bearing in mind, obviously, if we don't need to stay any longer than we need to, then we can jump off and rush off for our Taraweeh, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Saying salam, do you shake with one or two hands? Is wrestling in the masjid allowed sunnah? So I don't know, is that whilst you're shaking hands or when you're not shaking hands? So the practice is, there is hadith which supports shaking with the one hand and shaking with the two hands. What we tend to find is we tend to prioritize the shaking of the hands with two hands, because it shows more respect, more honor, more dignity. Obviously, it's scripturally evidenced as well. Is wrestling in the masjid allowed sunnah? So obviously, is this because some imam made a mistake, or is it because he went a little bit over iftar time and nobody was ready to break their fast, so then it turned into a wrestling match? Obviously, I wouldn't condone in the main masjid hall to be throwing each other around. That's just a bit silly. But if obviously you're in the masjid, it's late, there's not members of the public around, and you decided for whatever reason to do a little bit of wrestling, I don't think it will be frowned upon as such. Obviously, those of you who are going into Itikaf, I'm sure there'll be some wrestling going on, deciding on when you're going to eat or whatever. So, it's not frowned upon. What we have to understand as well is how it's perceived by the public now. The way the masjid is now perceived is that it's a place where you don't, there's little noise, little disturbance and whatever. So it's sometimes you need to keep that in mind as well. So even though when a particular act is permissible, it's not sound to be doing it in public eye because of how it's going to be perceived. And before people say, oh, well, we should be challenging this sort of thing, I don't think that makes any sense to do. I'm popular today, mashallah. That's twice in, so let me give, there you go. Before so what was I saying before I was really interrupted by my children? I was saying so it depends how it's perceived in the public eye as well. People at the masjid across the road from my college go to the masjid. People at the masjid across the road from my college go to the masjid. Well, they would do because they are the people at the masjid. Otherwise, they would be called something else. And they talk really loud. Some say it's better to stay in the masjid and talk, but I thought masjids aren't a place for worldly talk. You're absolutely correct. So when you are in the masjid area, then one shouldn't be talking loudly because you're disturbing people from praying. So I'm sure there's some corridors or some communal area that a person can go to have a chit chat, but not really in the masjid, because that's like people come to pray, people come to recite Quran, people come for muraqabah, people, they're coming for many other reasons rather than hearing you having a bit of a gossip. If a woman is fasting and her menstruation starts in the afternoon, does her fast break? Yes, her fast will break and she is required to now eat. She should not refrain from eating up until sunset. She should eat because fasting is haram upon her. And therefore, in order to show that she's obedient to the laws of Allah, she will eat. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is one allowed to go out and buy food while in Sunnah Itikaf? Furthermore, is one allowed to go to work, school during this time? Also, is one allowed to shower when not reading Fard Ghusl during this time? No, for a Sunnah Itikaf, you are bound to the masjid from the before the nightfall of the 21st up until the night of Eid. You cannot leave the masjid. The only time you can leave the masjid is when you're answering the call of nature. And really, when it comes to anything other than that, particularly in the world we live in now, we got phones. So food can come. You can even get an Uber driver, mashallah, because most of the Uber drivers are Muslim. So you can even place, okay, not Uber, but Just Eat or anything else for that matter. I'm not going to promote one particular food delivery service. But nowadays, you can even order food on your app. And like I said, because 99% of them are Muslim anyway, they literally come into the masjid, say, come upstairs, I'm in the Jamaat Khan, I'm on Itikaf, tent number 3, knock on the tent, but not too loud because it's made out of a curtain and I will hear it anyway. So, that, they can literally deliver it to your tent, subhanAllah. So, food is not an issue anymore. So we don't really need to go out for food. Obviously, if you're going to college and work and everything, then kind of defeats the object of the itikaf. If you're not in a position to take time off, then it's probably better to do Nafil itikaf, which is stay in the masjid for as long as you can stay in rather than performing a Sunnah itikaf. Assalamu alaikum. Until what age is the father responsible to provide maintenance? Example, e.g., is it only until age of puberty? Does it mean if the child lives with the mother after puberty, the father isn't responsible to pay? That's correct. It's only up until the age of puberty. Shar'an wise, that person now is a grown child, okay, a grown man or a grown woman, and therefore he no longer is responsible for them. Like I said, in the UK law, obviously, there's some element of responsibility up until the child is the age of 18. But the father may say, well, send the child to me. Send the child to me. If you're struggling to support the child, let's just say it becomes baligh at 14, and the mother is saying, oh, you need to continue to support him even though he's baligh, and he says, no, we're applying the Sharia. So if you're struggling to support him, send him to me. I will support him. He will eat the food that I cook. He will live under my roof. I've got a spare bedroom. He don't need to pay the gas bills. He don't need to pay the electric bills and all the water. I'm covering those bills anyway. I've got a room he doesn't need to pay rent for. I'm buying the food. So there you go. I'm providing for him. But if you want him to stay with you, then you can't demand maintenance from me either, because Shar'an, he's now an adult. And once a child becomes an adult, the parents are no longer responsible for. Sorry, Mufsab, a follow-up question about the menstruating woman. Her menstruation started half an hour before iftar time. Would she make up the fast later? Yes, unfortunately, because obviously her haid started during the day and not after iftar during the night. Then she will break that fast. She has to break that fast because it's haram for her now to fast. She will eat, and then also she will make that fast up at a later date when obviously Ramadan is over. I also want to ask about the order of surahs in Taraweeh. Should it be in the order from 0 to 20? Or if it has chronological order in... I'm only doing that because I can't see it. There's a little emoji in the corner and then you can't see the text. I also want to ask about order of surahs in the Taraweeh. Should it be in order from 1 to 20? There's more than 20 surahs in the Quran. So I'm not sure what this 1 to 20 means. Or if it has chronological order in each 2 rakats, it is fine. Oh, I see what you mean. You mean like, should you keep chronological order throughout? Yani, so if you prayed, I don't know, Surah Baqarah in the first, let me give it a little, Surah Watteen wa Zaytoon, then you can't pray something that comes right. No, the chronological just needs to be kept within the 2 rakats. That's correct. I think I understand what you're saying. Anything on Insta? Insta is very quiet, mashallah. No questions here. I'm just going to check the Markaz al-Ifta wal Qada. Otherwise, we can disappear, or something's come up now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well, inshallah, Sheikh. I wanted to know, during Taraweeh, sometimes people leave for various reasons, just as the Imam gets up to read and everyone follows. There ends up being a gap in the middle of a row while everyone has already begun praying. This usually happens in the back rows. So I wanted to know what should be done in such a case. Sometimes the rest of the people in the row ignore the gap. So should they shuffle to the left while in salah or remain where they are? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. What they should do is shuffle and fill that gap. This is the unfortunate thing, is that they leave when the Imam starts. If you need to go to the bathroom, or you need to go somewhere, or you need to take an urgent call or whatever, then leave immediately after the second salam. So at least then people know where they stand, quite literally. So they can fill the gaps, because leaving gaps is not appropriate. So what should happen is the people should shuffle a bit to the left or to the right, whichever way, to fill the gap in. If they don't, the person in the back can take steps forward and fill the gap. But don't move the full gap in one go. So shuffle a couple of steps, wait. Shuffle a couple of steps, wait. Shuffle a couple of steps, wait. Shuffle a couple of steps, and by then, hopefully you've reached the saf ahead of you. but the gap should be filled. Again, this is about education, and this is always the problem of getting in the back row, because when you get into the back row, then you've got the strugglers or the stragglers or the whatever, the strigglers, and they always are, tapping out for a break or for some fresh air or wherever they go when they tap out. So you're better off being amongst the mujahideen in the first few rows, because those mujahideen in the first few rows, mashallah, no heat, no lack of water, no pressure shakes them. They stand like mountains, mashallah. So if you get to the masjid nice and early, you get into those first few safs, you'll have nothing to worry about. When you get into those back rows and you're dealing with all sorts, you've got little kiddies running around behind you, you got people chit-chatting around you, you got people sat playing on their phone waiting for their mom to go into ruku before they join it. You got so much distraction going on. The one or two times that I've made it in those back rows, I don't even know what I'm doing. You lose track of everything. So, it's better to be up front amongst the mujahideen. They keep you on track, mashallah. Let me see if there's anything else on here. No, that's the chaps done. Assalamu alaikum. Can anyone please tell me the end timings of Sahri according to Ramadan start from today? Because at our local masjid, they follow Saudi and ahead of us. Hey, what is following Saudi for your fast got to do with suhoor time? Anyway, Brother Josefa, if you download the Wifaq al-Ulama app, then you will find on there all the suhoor times. I've mentioned this probably so many times. I've mentioned it probably more white hairs that I have in my beard, which I have plenty, alhamdulillah. So I have said you need to download the app. Once you've downloaded the app, you've got the bit where it finds by GPS, it finds where you are, and it will give you all the times and follow those times. Assalamu alaikum. I recently moved to Bridgewater in UK, and it's confusing to know which Hijri calendar to follow, as in my masjid they started Ramadan with the sighting of the moon in Saudi Arabia, while I'm hearing that some are following the actual moon sighting in the UK. Please guide me in this matter. Lucky Ali. Okay, you're not so lucky then, are you? Because if you're in an area where you're being confused, you might need to look at your name and call yourself maybe Unlucky Ali just for then. If you go, my dear brother, again to Wifaq al-Ulama's website, and under moon sighting, I have written, and as my colleagues have written, pages and pages and theses in there, and also lots of videos. So it will take me too long to explain something here to you. Just suffice to say that follow the UK sighting, and in the absence, whenever we struggle in the UK, we cite the nearest Muslim country, and the nearest Muslim country to us is Morocco. Forwarded question. Away from OneCoin scam, is it haram to invest in Bitcoin cryptocurrency? I have answered this previously, and I would say the same thing is I would advocate not to invest in cryptocurrency. That is what I would say, not to invest in cryptocurrency. So that's all the chaps done. Let's see if there's any in the ladies' Markaz al-Ifta wal-Qadha. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible for a female to recite her Taraweeh prayers out loud in her home when no one else is present? The purpose of this is to record her recitation of the Quran so she can listen to this afterwards and correct any mistakes she has made. This is probably not the best way to correct your mistakes, because you'll be making the mistakes whilst you're reciting and you won't know you've made the mistakes till later on. So it's probably better to have somebody there who listens to you and corrects you. So maybe have another hafiza there or whatever that can follow you. But I guess in the absence of that, there'd be no harm in doing something like this for this purpose, because your maqsad is to check. And you don't need to be that loud. Okay, if you connect one of these things, I've got one of these things here. One of these little recording devices. And you can hook this onto your shirt or whatever it is, and you can record it, and then you can listen to this with earphones afterwards as well. There's a little socket for earphones, so you can do that instead, inshallah. Right, that's that done. Alhamdulillah. and I can't recall any emails or anything coming in, so I'm going to leave that for now. Just enough to wrap up these few questions and to speak about. Oops, I've closed the wrong tab. So where have I put you guys? Oh, you're down here. There you are. Okay, so before we disappear, I need to make sure that I discuss what will be taking place in the next Fiqh Hour. So in the next Fiqh Hour, inshallah, we'll be speaking about the global citizenship of Muslims. What does that mean? What does this global citizenship mean? What does being part of the Ummah mean? We get sometimes conflicted scenarios in which we live in a particular nation, in a particular country, and we see its needs and its demands. And then we see the Ummah's needs and the Ummah's demands. And we sometimes get a little bit confused. Which way should we jump? Should we jump to the left or should we jump to the right? So we'll discuss that, inshallah, in the next Fiqh Hour, which, all being well, will be tomorrow. I know the iftar time is creeping towards our Fiqh Hour, which is at 7 p.m. Soon it will be so close that I will be eating dates whilst doing the Fiqh Hour. But I think as we get closer to it, we will be shifting our time across onto the later time, but I will be making those announcements. Again, what I always say, but doesn't hurt saying it again, because nobody listens to me anyway. So I like listening to the sound of my own voice. Please do share the videos that we do so others may benefit from them. And similarly, share the channel's links, whether you're sharing on Insta, YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok. Let me just pick up the next few questions. Surah Yasin in the first 4 rakats and Surah Rahman in the next 4 rakats. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Is Taraweeh Sunnah prayer or Nafil? It is Sunnah Muakkada, Taraweeh. I heard in one of the lectures that a lady stayed in Itikaf in Masjid al-Haram. Is this allowed? I don't know if she stayed. As I said, this seems like some information you have. But according to the Ahnaf, for women to do itikaf, women should be doing itikaf in the home. Now, I know obviously there's some evidence where the wives of the Prophet ﷺ performed itikaf in Masjid Nabwi. However, the situation now is always being promoted because of the issues that you will get with the with issues, the intermingling situation that will come, and one can only dread one situation where during the night there's men and women staying in a masjid and there's no boundaries and a person can wander around. That's the last thing you want anyone to hear. So for that reason we see this split where women are always encouraged to pray their salahs in their home, and there's more afzal and more rewarding for them to do so. Goodness me, my heart rate is going up. Must be the food kicking in. So that's the answer to that. How can one respond to a non-Muslim when they say, I am lucky, I am not Muslim, I don't need to fast and stay hungry? Well, we don't fast to stay hungry. That's just a consequence of fasting. We fast in order to gain taqwa, in order to gain God consciousness. And that's probably the reason why this person is a non-Muslim. Because alhamdulillah, we have God consciousness. And if you look at Surah Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim Dhalikal Kitab la rayba fihi Hudan lil Muttaqin. The Quran mentions it is a guidance for the people of taqwa. That's the reason why these people may look at the Quran and see no sense in it. And alhamdulillah, because we are gaining taqwa through fasting, when we look at the Quran, we get sense of it. So if it means staying hungry for a little bit and getting heaven, I guess that's easy. You could just say to this person, okay, if you stayed hungry for a little bit and you were given heaven, would you prefer that, or would you prefer to eat and be given hell for eternity? You don't have to say you have to be a Muslim or whatever. Just say, let me give as a matter of fact situation that you had two choices. One choice was to be hungry a little bit in the day and get eternal bliss in heaven. And the other choice you had was to never be hungry and get eternal damnation in hell. What would you prefer? Now, unless this person is just going to be silly and be awkward, they're going to answer, I'd rather be hungry a little bit and get eternal salvation in heaven. And if they say it, and if they do be silly and be naughty with you, and they say, no, I would prefer to eat all the time and get eternal damnation in hellfire, then say, why do you work? Why do you put yourself through getting up early in the morning, getting changed, going working for somebody some guy who has to tell you, usually some guy, what time you have to be in, what you have to wear, how long you take a break for, how long you go to the toilet, how long you can go to eat for, how quick you have to be in, how much you can talk to your colleagues, and how much work you need to get done. And then you get home at 6 o'clock, whatever time you get home. Why do you do that for? That shows you're willing to put through some difficulty in order for the gain you get from it. And the difficulty you put yourself through is the hard work that you do during the day. The gain you get from it is you can pay your mortgage, you can get a car, you can go maybe on a holiday, you can get the stuff you want. So therefore, you're already doing that. You're already putting yourself through hardship in order for a gain. And that gain isn't all that. The hardship we're putting ourselves through is for eternal bliss. So you can slam dunk her on any one of those two arguments. Use the argument first, and if she plays silly buggers, then use the second argument. Okay, my first call for shutting up shop. So if you do have some burning questions, please do get them out now. Otherwise, we will part company and disappear, not into the sunset, but disappear into the darkness, because sunset has come and gone. And we already know what our theme is going to be for tomorrow, which is going to be talking about this whole concept of global citizenship. I think everybody's appetite has been satiated. That's good. So till tomorrow, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.